Welcome to Passionate and Practical, the art of dreaming, doing, and serving. On this show, we are all about pursuing passions. We're all about helping you pursue your passions and putting practical things in place so that you can have a better life, so that in return you can serve others, because ultimately that's what we're here to do. So today we want to talk about health and wellness and kind of this holistic approach of how to look at your body and look at health. It's a very popular topic right now, these crash diets, and every magazine that you see, it says paleo or gluten-free or dairy-free or you name it, and we want to kind of talk about some of the things that are actually healthy, some of the things that may be health myths, and just kind of dive into what it looks like to look at your health in a holistic way. So today, joining me is my friend Christine, and she is the owner of Alms Fare, which is a snack bite company, and they're all healthy snack bites. So Christine, tell us a little bit about your passion for health and define health for us.
So my definition of health is all-encompassing. It's what we put in our bodies with the food we eat, what we put on it with our skincare and beauty routines, and then also what we surround ourselves with. Are we in a healthy community? Are we treating ourselves well? And I think that stems from the fact that every single person on this earth has needs to eat, and they have a health and wellness routine, no matter what it is. So I think it stems from that. It unites us all.
So tell us a little bit about Alms Fare and how you got started with it.
So Alms Fare Provisions with a Vision is a snack bite company that gives to charities here in Chattanooga and hopefully the world soon as the company grows. And so I make these little snack food bites that are made from gluten-free oats, cashews, almonds, and then just depending on the flavor, different ingredients. But I use unrefined sugars in it, so it's maple and honey. And all the ingredients in there are not meant to be a quick energy fix, something that you'll burn off really quickly and then have a sugar crash. It's meant for a slow, sustainable burn throughout the day.
I love that. So I personally have had these bites, and they're delicious and nutritious, all the things. They're delicious. So what is it about these bites that kind of fills you up? Or, sometimes I eat snacks and I'm just like, gosh, I'm hungry like 2 minutes later. So what is it about them that fills them? Kind of helps you stay full longer?
So it's the oats and the nuts in there. Both of them have a really good source of carbs and protein that will sustain you throughout the day. It won't be a quick fix like that, and then you'll be hungry an hour later. They really are filling, even though they're super tiny, but they're delicious and really filling.
So my personal journey with health is that 4 years ago, I was struggling with migraines and mood swings, and I was medicated for ADD, and I had a doctor that told me about this book called Grain Brain, and it was all about carbs, wheat, and sugar and how it affects your brain. And for the first time in my life, I had looked at my diet and what I'm putting in my mouth and what I'm putting on my plate as something that's actually affecting my brain. And they say your gut is your second brain. So for me, it's just kind of been this journey of figuring out what works, what doesn't. And instead of just thinking that, oh, I have a headache, that was random, I now trace it back to what food I ate. And my husband, Blake, he just thinks it's hilarious because I'm always talking about, oh, I have a headache. Oh, I think that yesterday afternoon I ate this, and this, and that's why I have a headache. And then I just drink more water, and I really try my hardest to kind of diagnose myself instead of just being someone that relies heavily on the medical world, which there is definitely a need for that. But I've found that I've kind of become someone who can self-medicate in a way as far as I'm getting the sniffles. So I go to a local juice bar and I get the sniffle stopper or whatever it is, essential oils and either turmeric and ginger shots, and just go and I take one of those back, and within hours I'm literally feeling better. So what are some things that you do or that are in your daily routine as far as health goes, and what does your eating look like? What do you prepare for meals?
So I think it starts with a good night's sleep. I think that has a huge part to do with how you live your day and how you wake up, what mood you wake up in. And just starting your day with a glass of water. I always start my day with a huge 24-ounce glass of water. And that just sets the tone for the day. I just feel rehydrated and amazing for the day. And another thing that I've started to do is working out in the morning. And I think that takes a while to kind of develop your workout routine and what works best for you. Because I was definitely not a morning person before, but now I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and working out, which a year ago, if you told me that, I would have said you're crazy, you know?
That's where my face is clearly saying that right now. Christine, you're crazy.
But it works for me. And and I don't really view it as getting it out of the way during the day. It's just something that I do for myself in the morning.
Absolutely.
And so I kind of view the day as an all-encompassing wellness day. So it's not like I'm carving out just an hour at the gym to focus on myself. It's all throughout the day, just mindful wellness. So whether it be drinking a glass of water in the morning and working out, doing a little yoga, stretching, just do something for yourself when you wake up in the morning versus just getting up and getting ready for work or something. Let's see. For breakfast, I usually have a smoothie. I've found that I digest that the easiest in the morning, just because I want to start with very light foods, not something super heavy. I usually have my heaviest meal at lunchtime, and that will usually be a bowl of some sorts with greens and some quinoa or rice in it, and sweet potatoes and some type of beans and sometimes meat or fish. And I found that when I eat my heaviest meal during lunchtime, I don't feel as bogged down as I would if I ate it at dinner time. And it makes sense because in Europe, they do lunch as their biggest meal of the day. And then for dinner, they have just light little hors d'oeuvres. And it makes sense because your body is, or food is something that you're fueling your body with.
Right.
So it makes sense that you're eating that during the most high energy part of your day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I usually try to do something a little bit lighter for dinner.
So there's this kind of concept of, there's all these new fads coming out, and I think that some of them are really great. There's the keto diet, there's paleo, there is Whole30. All of these are basically coming back to the basics of where did our food come from. All of those things they have in common is that we're not buying food with a shelf life. So some of the items that I think is most important to look out for. And this is not to completely eliminate, this is not to say you can never eat this, but there is kind of a list of food that might be affecting you, and you might not be paying attention to it, or you may not be aware of it. And so the 7 the items are gluten and wheat. They can affect you with bloating. They can give you migraines. For me, I had chicken skin, which is basically acne on the back of the arms. I had ADD. I was having mood swings. So I call gluten the silent killer because it manifests itself in your body in many different ways. Sometimes it's in the GI tract, and the biggest thing to note is that not everyone has a gluten intolerance. So if you're not affected by gluten and you love bread and you don't feel lethargic or feel any of those other things that I just mentioned, then don't take it out of your diet. But if you notice that if you don't eat it, that you feel better, then that's something to look out for. Sugar. I think that sugar is one of the biggest things that is, if I might say this and be really dramatic, one of the things that is killing America. We are seeing sugar is in almost every boxed item that you get from the store. And I'm not talking natural sugars like fruits, but fruit juices even. Things that are 100% juice. Things that are deemed as healthy. These yogurts with the fruit puree, those kind of things. Even crackers have sugar in them. So refined sugar, not the way to go. Even organic cane sugar, it's still sugar. And not to say that, you're having a birthday party and you want to have a slice of cake, go for it. But some people, and especially as America, we start by getting a cup of coffee, putting sugar in it. Then we make our pancakes with sugar in it, and then we put sugar on top of it. And then for lunch, we're eating something, and then we're like, oh, I need to have some M&Ms with my lunch because I need a dessert after every meal. And then dinner comes, and then we're like, oh, we need a bowl of ice cream. So as Americans, we're just consuming so much sugar. And so, and then the other ones are dairy, soy, corn, alcohol. So alcohol is a big one. I think that a lot of people see that is is affecting them, whether it be the way that they sleep at night. For me, sometimes I like to have a glass of wine, but sometimes I'll wake up and I'll feel more tired than when I don't drink. So what is your take on some of those 7 ingredients? What do you try to stay away from? And how do you encourage someone when they hear that long list? They're like, wow, like this is so overwhelming. How do you encourage them that it's not about what you're, all the things you're taking away, but what you're adding to?
Yeah, so I think it's important to be mindful of the fact that you can't just eliminate all of these things and you'll be okay, because that's not sustainable. You need to find a sustainable diet that works for you. And this doesn't have to be like some fad or diet that's in the media today. It can just be what works for you. So like personally, gluten doesn't affect me at all.
Right.
I do try to stay away from it, but I do not feel any effects. And people have said like, oh, it makes me feel awful. And I'm like, it doesn't really affect me.
Yeah. Hey girl, I'd be eating the whole thing of bread at Carrabba's if I could eat gluten, because that sourdough is incredible.
Yes. So I definitely do try to just kind of limit my intake just a little bit on breads, but it's important to get those macronutrients in there. So I know like with the keto diet, it eliminates carbs completely, or I think it's high fat, but I think it's important just to eat like your micro and macronutrients, get everything in there, and not eliminate just some items from your diet. And again, just be like graceful with it. Just give yourself grace. I follow the 80-20 rule.
Yes.
And it's not like I sit there and count what's the 80 and what's the 20, but generally speaking, 80% of the food that I put in my body is good, and 20% of it just makes me feel good. And it's eating a slice of cake at a birthday party or something like that.
That's awesome. So kind of dive more into that. What does it look like to be gracious with yourself and gracious with yourself around others? I think that the way that we interact with food definitely affects others. So I think that for me, when I first became gluten-free, I was kind of like the gluten police, and I was like, don't eat that, don't eat that. Do you know what gluten does to you? So now that I've been, going at this for a couple years, I've realized that that was actually harmful to be that stressed out about it, and it actually affected the way that other people interacted with me around food, and affected the way that they felt guilty and for no reason. And so how can we, if we have this thought, or if we've realized that we have a gluten intolerance, how can we engage with our community and let people know that we are gluten-free, but without being abrasive about it?
Yeah, so I think the classic example of this for me is my parents, because I grew up eating meat and potatoes for every meal, and that was deemed nutritious, and which is fine. And so I think when I lived with my parents, I tried to teach them instead of preach at them. And it definitely started off as like, that's bad for you, that's good for you. And then, but they're not really listening to that. It's just going in one ear and out the other. And this can be applied to anybody. And I started to realize that, and then showing them just healthy substitutions for things. And then they're like, oh, this is actually really good. Like, we'll start making it like this. But you have to show people. And not be looking down upon anybody because of their diet, because at one point we both ate like that. It's just a learning experience. And I think for people wanting to be healthier, it can be very difficult to look at all of these diets and all of these just health products on the market. But I think we just need to look at it from a very simple standpoint. And that's kind of what I've gathered by like reading all these books about it, and just my own experiences, is that if you're just eating the food that God created for you on this earth, and that's grown in the ground or on a tree, that's good for you. Anything like that. So just try to stay away from artificial foods and processed foods, stuff in a box. And some of it can be good. And looking at ingredients rather than a nutrition fact label, because there's a bunch of like 100-calorie snacks out there. But if you look at the ingredients, they're not good. So I think just looking at the ingredients and making sure that you can pronounce them, and like if that ingredient was taken out of that bar or whatever it is, you would not be grossed out at it, because I often think about that, what is this ingredient, and if it was like taken out of there and just like placed on the table, like what it would look like. And I feel like it would gross a lot of us out and we would
Right.
not eat the food that we're eating.
Right.
So I feel like if you can pronounce everything, if you can see it in your mind, then it's good for you. And I feel like people stress about it a little bit too much.
Yeah. So what are some of the substitutions for things? Like, what are your favorite substitutions that people have been encouraged by? Like, oh, this is like your parents. This has been really good.
Yeah, so for my parents, quinoa was a huge one. They had no idea what it was, and once I showed it to them how to cook it, how to season it, they started replacing rice and a bunch of pasta for quinoa. So that's a huge one, I think, because it actually is very good. And then I think, let's see. Just eliminating meat just a little bit, like having it 2 times a week instead of 5. Just like little transitions like that, instead of just throwing all this information at somebody, you can just tweak it just a little.
So for me, one of my favorite things to make is gluten-free banana cakes is what my husband calls them. And it's the most simple ingredients. It's 1 banana, 2 eggs, and a handful of oats in the blender. You put some butter on the pan just like you would make regular pancakes, and pour them like pancakes, and just put either maple syrup, which is and it has to be, I'm not just talking about Aunt Jemima, like I'm talking about real maple syrup. And pour it on with a little bit of peanut butter, and it is delicious and super filling because oats are really filling. And mamas, if you're breastfeeding mamas like I am, then oats are really good for your supply. So that's just a little tip and trick. So those are some things that I am a huge breakfast eater, and one of the really devastating things for me when I became gluten-free was just like, I can't eat French toast. I can't eat bagels. I can't eat donuts. I can't eat pancakes. I mean, what can I eat?
Yeah.
Just eggs? What? Come on. So I've gotten really creative with eating overnight oats and the banana cakes, and I do eat some eggs, and sometimes I'll have like a gluten-free peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I know that that's not the best, but sometimes as a mom on the go, it's the 80-20 rule, right? So we didn't explain that. So 80-20 is just 80% of the time you're eating healthy and whole foods being fruits, vegetables, and meats and beans and things along the lines of just what's been grown from the ground. I once heard someone say, if it's grown from the ground or has a mom, it's okay to eat. And not talking about humans, but as in chicken, steak, pork. If you're into that kind of thing, if you're a vegetarian, then just what's grown from the ground. But kind of let's switch gears as far as wellness, and let's talk about fitness. What does fitness do for your body? And you talked about waking up early in the morning. So what are some of the ways that you like to stay fit and be active, and how do you incorporate fitness, getting that fitness. How do you incorporate fitness in your daily routine in a way that doesn't feel daunting?
So I think it stems from finding something that you love doing. So it's not dragging yourself to the gym just to complete your workout and feel good about it. It's finding something that you love, whether it be hiking or biking, just walking. But if you hate lifting weights, then don't lift weights. Just do some body weight exercises. But it doesn't have to be something that's very complicated, or having these like fancy workout routines, or buying these guides, or going to a fancy gym. You just need your body and movement. That's all you need. So the simple ways I've tried to incorporate it is like I'll walk to work sometimes, and it's a little over a mile, but it's such a good wellness incorporation for my day. Because I listen to a podcast, I just walk and enjoy my time. So it's working on my spiritual and mental wellness as well as my physical wellness. And I think it's just little things like that. So if you are at a desk all day, a lot of offices have standing desks now, which is great. So just standing for an hour a day can really, it activates your mind a little bit more than sitting. And let's see, like walking up and down the stairs, parking a little bit further from the grocery store just to walk a little further into the store.
Isn't it interesting that people park so close to the door when they're going to the gym? I've always found that so fascinating.
Yes,
but
I do the same. Like,
I
do
that.
that.
Oh, of course. I'm not judging. I'm definitely that person like, oh yeah, parking angels are with me today. Okay, thank you for that front row spot. But I'm so glad that you mentioned if lifting weights isn't your thing, then don't do it. Because honestly, when me and my husband started dating, we wanted to do everything together. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the gym with him, and I was lifting weights, and I hated it every single time. Like there was nothing fulfilling about it. But I love to dance, I love to play volleyball, I love to walk. So it's like, why not focus on the things that are exciting for me to do with my time? So for me, I'm now a part of a fitness group or community, I would call it. It's called Fit for Mom, and I get to go down to the park, and I bring my baby with me in the stroller, and it's all about like full body workout with just, the only equipment we have is a resistance band and a ball. What are those things
Medicine
called?
ball?
No, it's a ball with air in it. Anyways, it's just a simple ball and a band, and we use our strollers, and we do lots of squats, we do push-ups, we do jumping jacks. I mean, we do cardio. We walk from one side of the park to the other to get our cardio in, or some moms run. I'm just not that much of an overachiever, but it's an hour class, and I go twice a week, and then the other days of the week I try to walk with a mom friend. So for me, in my current season of life as a mom, I'm incorporating a lot of stroller type exercises into my routine. So it's just trying to figure out, what time do you have? And let me just say, if you think you don't have time to work out, that's BS, and you do have time. You just aren't making it a priority. So I'm sorry for the little kick in the booty, but that's real life. We prioritize what we, what we think matters. And so sometimes health is not a priority, but I think something I also say to my husband when we've spent a little bit more money on groceries is that we're investing in our health today so that we don't have to pay the medical bills tomorrow.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. I'm big on that, because I think that sometimes you can look at these grocery bills, and there's definitely ways around it, but you can look at your grocery bill and you can say, you know what? This is a lot more than I'd like to have spent, but I know that every single item that is in this grocery shopping or in my shopping cart is going to fuel my body. And they say that it either is fighting disease or feeding disease. And so for me, I'm constantly asking like myself, is this, am I fighting disease with, these items? And so tell us a little bit about some of those items that are disease fighters, maybe some superfoods, maybe some greens. What's your grocery cart look like?
Let's see. I go to the produce section first, so I guess going around the perimeter. So I don't try to go in the snack food aisle. And if I do, like obviously I like popcorn and chips and all that kind of stuff, but I do try to find a healthier alternative for it. But I usually buy a lot of fruit to snack on. I think it was God's candy when he created it.
I love that.
So
it's also beautiful.
It is, yeah. And then I also buy a lot of greens, a lot of veggies, and sometimes like for dinner I'll just throw a bunch of veggies in the cast iron and have that with a side salad. I'm like picturing Whole Foods in my brain as I'm filling up my cart. So yeah, I get a lot of that, some fresh cheeses, and I think another thing to be mindful of is the quality of our food. It's not necessarily what you're getting, because you could be getting cheese, which is great, but you're not getting a quality cheese or meat, for example.
Right.
And same with produce. It could have a bunch of pesticides on it, but the strawberry itself is really good for you. So that's something I'm mindful of as I'm grocery shopping. And the second is, let's see what else. I do like yogurt for the morning. I try to make breakfast as easy as possible. But I think incorporating a lot of greens in your diet does really well for your body. Especially eating a lot of raw foods. I've found it like boosts my energy quite a bit. So eating like a raw salad with your cooked pasta or whatever it is. Another alternative is a chickpea pasta that I found. It's called Eat Bonza pasta, and it tastes exactly like pasta, like the good stuff, but it's made from chickpeas, and it's gluten-free, and it's delicious.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah.
Sounds delicious.
But I think another thing that you hit on when you were speaking is doing all of this with a community around you and with friends. And I think that's so important, because if you're meal prepping with friends or if you're exercising with friends, it's not viewed as a chore. It's more viewed as just hanging out with your friend and doing something fun with them. And so I recently read a book called The Blue Zones, which talks about what's deemed the healthiest cities in the world. And I think there's 5 or 6 cities all around the world. And it talks about the foods that they eat, but it focuses more on how community around you and your family and your relationships can be really good and beneficial for your health.
Wow.
So it's really, really interesting, and I definitely recommend that book. It's a very simple read, and it's very informative, and it made me realize like how much I don't just sit down with a friend and have a cup of coffee or a meal, and how important it is.
Yeah, that's a really good resource, and thanks for sharing that. It's always good to have tips that beyond just this episode that you can go and research for yourself. So that's a great resource. And so in the beginning, you touched on what we put on our skin, not just what we eat, but what we put on our skin. So there is a study that shows that whatever you put on your skin absorbs into your bloodstream within a minute. And so this is not something to mess around with in my mind. For me, something practical, and honestly, it's a journey, but one of the biggest switches that I've made is deodorant. And I used to use one of the big name brands like Secret, and then I realized that you have lymph nodes in your armpits, and so it absorbs into your skin, and it can be dangerous and toxic. And guess what? Like, God is sovereign, and he knows every fiber and inch of our body. So I'm not saying that you have to check all the boxes, because I think that there is an extreme way to get into health, and there's an extreme way that is it's almost like legalistic, and it becomes an idol. And I've actually been in that space. But as I've kind of taken a step back, I'm like, what can I control? So I always tell people, just bite off what you can chew, and just take it one step at a time. And so I hope that if you're listening to this message today, that you do not feel overwhelmed by the information we're giving you, but you feel encouraged, because it is a journey. Health is a journey. It's a nonstop journey, just like your faith. It's like when when I was 19, I opened the Bible and I read the Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Bible. And so fast forward to now, when I read the Gospels, when I'm looking at verses, they speak something completely different to me than they did when I was 19. And I think that that's because there's a journey, and things are meeting me in the season that I'm in. So I think that health is similar. So there's grace for all of the stuff that we did to our bodies up until this point. And now it's just up to us to kind of make those small corrections as time goes on. And so for me, one of the things is just looking at lotions that I'm buying and trying not to use artificial scents. I think that places like Bath and Body Works and Victoria's Secret, they sell these really heavy scented things that smell incredible, but they're actually can be toxic for our bodies. And not to say that you can never use those things, but just kind of being more mindful of the things we purchase. So I'm just now starting to love essential oils, and sometimes if I want a little bit of a fresh smell, like I'll put a little bit of lemon or a little bit of lavender on my wrist, and I'll just go. And I've kind of eliminated perfume from being a part. But I will say about the deodorant that, like I said, it's been a journey, and still by probably this time is I just start smelling bad. I'm using Native deodorant. It's a really great deodorant. They have like a subscription model, and I really love it. However, I don't know what it is about me, but it is hard for me to not at a certain point just start smelling bad. So
that's for everybody. I mean, especially with natural deodorants, it's so hard to find one that works for you. But it's so beneficial to do it. And our bodies are like sponges. And the way I started viewing it is like, if I wouldn't eat this thing, or like, I don't know what, I mean, that sounds weird, but it's if you don't know what ingredients are in your deodorant or your, perfume, whatever it may be that you're putting on your body, then don't put it on your body. It's the same as like ingesting it. I mean, it goes into your body the same way. So a huge thing that I did when I was kind of giving up like the the Bath and Body Works and all that kind of stuff is using coconut oil, which it sounds kind of funny, like putting oil on your body, but it is so great. Like it just soaks in and it's so nice. Then I also use oil on my face. So I use like argan oil, rosehip oil, and then coconut oil. And they just soak right in. They don't make your skin oily or anything, even if you do have oily skin.
I think that we could do a whole segment just about coconut oil because I recently started doing coconut pulling, which is hard and it can be gross, but it's basically taking a spoonful of coconut oil, organic of course, and making sure you know where it comes from, but you put it in your mouth, you swish it around for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, however long you can stand, and then you spit it out, brush your teeth, and it really does whiten your teeth. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And
I've been wanting to try that.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And then you can also put it on like split ends, and you can put it on your dry skin. You can use it to cook with. It's actually really good on skillets with high heat, and so coconut oil is amazing. I find it fascinating too that coconut is the one thing that you can survive on because it has enough to hydrate you with the coconut water that's inside of it, but then the coconut meat has enough it has enough texture and whatever nutrients you need to actually survive on. So I find that fascinating.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So if you were trapped and you had to survive on a desert island and you had to pick one thing that you wanted, I would say that coconuts should be the answer. So anyways, let's wrap up with just some final few questions and then we will kind of end our time. So rapid fire and just be honest and be you. But if you could describe your personality in one word, what would it be?
Fiery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you, what is your love language?
What is words of affirmation? I think that's mine.
And then lastly, what is your morning routine? You kind of touched on it, but just tell us a little bit more.
Get up, big glass of water, do something for myself movement-wise, whether it be going to the gym or yoga, anything like that.
Awesome. Well, Christine, thanks so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you being here. And as always, ladies, you are infinitely valuable. I cannot say this enough. You were created with a purpose that only you can fulfill by God. He created you with a unique set of gifts, skills, and talents, and He wants you to use them for His glory. So go and be His hands and feet to this broken world, and have a beautiful day. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch. If this message has encouraged you, then please click to subscribe and share with a friend who may be inspired by the message. Also, if you have an event coming up and you're looking for a speaker, click the link below to get in touch with me.